4 responsibilities of a coach. The first responsibility of a coach is the health and safety of the participants or athletes taking part. It is the coach's job to find out information about the athlete, for example, age, height, weight, or any previous possible injuries. The coach also needs to do a risk assignment actively throughout the course of the training to make sure the people taking part aren't under any threat. The coach has the responsibility to check the surroundings, facilities, for possible litter or dangerous items which could cause damage to the performer if accidentally stepped on or fallen on. They would also have to make sure they have the correct amount of space and spatial awareness needed for the activities. The coach must also make sure the weather conditions are okay for practice or taking part in the sport. For example, if the coach wants to play a football game, they need to make sure it isn't too cold to play and that the pitch hasn't frozen over. They also need to make sure the weather isn't keeping anyone from turning up to the game or practice. An example of this could be if it is snowing and one of the participants lives far away from the pitch, they might not be able to make it. It would be the coach's responsibility to know this. The coach would have to check for the correct equipment and technique, otherwise the performer might get injured. Another responsibility the coach has is supporting the performer. For example, in gymnastics, the coach would help a beginner learn to front flip. Without the correct support, the performer could injure themselves. It is the coach's responsibility to make sure the performer has filled out a medical questionnaire so they know of possible injuries or possible medical equipment that might be needed, for example, an asthma pump. The second set of responsibilities a coach has is professional conduct. The coach must act appropriately when around the participants or athletes. This involves the coach using appropriate language. For example, a coach for an under-11s football team shouldn't swear in front of the team because this sets a bad example and isn't acceptable, as the children could pick up the language and use it themselves. The coach would also have to use appropriate criticism. For example, an elite athlete or an athlete of fairly high age can accept and use criticism to improve what they are doing. But young children should be told the positives of whatever they are doing, because if they focus on the negatives, they could become disheartened and give up. The coach needs to follow the rules of the game and also follow the law, otherwise they will set a bad example for participants to follow. It is also the coach's responsibility to be fair to everyone equally, whether they know them well or whether they don't. It is also the coach's responsibility to turn up on time for the match or training. The primary responsibility for the coach is the protection of the participants or athletes. Another set of responsibilities a coach has is equal opportunities. A coach would have to include everyone and not exclude someone just because of their age, religion, race, weight, gender, social status, or ability. The coach should include everyone and make sure no one gets left out. If someone gets left out, they might give up on the sport and their mental health could also be affected. The media has a massive impact on how people think and act. The media could be a major reason someone gets excluded because of their gender, age or religion. For example, media is very male dominated and therefore females might get left out or looked down upon in the sport because of how little coverage of female athletes there is. This is the same for a religion and other similar backgrounds. Because of there being such a lack of coverage of female athletes, there is also a lack of role models for the children or others watching the sport. If there is only a few female athletes getting covered by the media, the people wanting to start the sport might not know where to look and then might give up on trying the sport. A big reason for factors causing people to view new athletes differently is family beliefs. For example, if someone is brought up being told that a certain religion can't play a sport just because of their religion, they will believe this and view all athletes of that religion as bad, and then might spread the hatred towards them. In different countries, different sports are covered. For example, in England, the main sports that are covered are cricket, football, and rugby. This means people who live in England might be less likely to play a sport such as basketball, which doesn't get as much coverage in the country. However, in a country like USA, basketball is covered more than cricket, so people who live there might be more likely to play basketball instead of cricket. This doesn't give an equal opportunity to everyone because of their nationality. The sports that are covered in England are mainly male-dominated sports, and this could cause females to be hesitant when trying the sport. The last responsibility of a coach I'll be speaking about is legal obligations. This is respecting the law and having the correct requirements needed. If a coach is transporting young children, they need to make sure everyone is safe and has their seatbelt on. They aren't allowed to use personal vehicles to transport them because they have to have a business insured vehicle. Some of the children would need parental guidance if they are young. The coach driving must have the legal requirements for the vehicle. For example, a coach would need a minivan license to drive a minivan with a team in it. The coach needs to make sure everyone is safe and identify any children at risk. This is either because of a problem at home or in the sport. If there is a concern about the safety of the child, the coach would need to report it. Another way the coach can make sure the children are safe is by bringing a first aid kit. This is just in case of any accidents. The coach would also have to take a register of everyone on the trip to make sure no one has gone missing. Finally, the coach needs to assess themselves and see if they are okay mentally to look after the children.